Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Toastmasters Unplugged, episode number 25. Tonight isn't about perfect speeches, it's about something far more powerful. It's about the moment things change. That moment when fear turns into courage, when self-doubt turns into self-belief, when a voice that once shook begins to lead. Because at its core, Toastmasters isn't just about speaking, it's about transformation. A global organization built on communication and leadership development has helped hundreds of thousands of people find their voice and step into leadership in their own lives. And tonight, we are diving into the real stories behind that transformation. Not the polished version, but the mindset shifts that made it possible. So whether you're here to grow your confidence, your leadership, or your voice, you're in the right room. And I'm joined by three incredible individuals who have not only found their voice, but have helped others find theirs too. So let's start with someone who understands leadership, not just in theory, but in high stakes environments where decisions actually matter. Gavin Gallagher has built a career in construction, project leadership, and mentoring others to perform under pressure. But what stands out is his ability to translate that experience into something deeper, helping people develop clarity, resilience, and confidence in how they show up. Because leadership isn't just about managing projects, it's about managing yourself. Gavin, great to have you with us.
John, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Next, we have someone who brings a powerful blend of analytical thinking and human connection. Kishore Goshikonda comes from a strong professional background in tech and leadership. But what makes his journey compelling is how he uses platforms like Toastmasters to evolve, not just as a speaker, but as a communicator who can influence, inspire, and connect. He represents something many people in this room are navigating: how to move from technical expertise to confident, impactful communication. Kishore, welcome.
Thank you, Jonah. Pleasure to be here.
And finally, we have someone who embodies what it means to lead with authority and presence. Carla Flynn, who is known for her work in leadership, communication, and empowering others to step into their voice with confidence and clarity. But what really sets her apart is her focus on how we show up. Not just what we say, but the energy, intention, self-belief behind it. Because mindset isn't just internal, it's something people feel from you. Carla, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Jono. It's an absolute honor to be here. Thank you for having me, and lovely to meet everybody.
And for those who don't know me, I'm John Opoon. Like many people here, I didn't start out confident. I was the shy kid. I started out overthinking everything I was about to say. But through this journey, I realized that something powerful, finding your voice isn't just about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of who you already are. And tonight is all about that journey. Now, we will dive straight into questions. Can you take us back to the moment you realized something needs to change in me? Gavin, if you want to go first.
Yeah, that is something that I can shed some light on. I was going through a very, very difficult time post 2008. So I had built up a very successful investment career, and I had made a huge amount of money, but I had done it by borrowing lots of money. And of course, the party came to an end in 2008 with the great financial crash. And I can remember going from having, this just abundance, financial abundance all the time, and never having to worry about money, well, suddenly it's in a very, very difficult situation where the money dried up completely. And I can remember I was in a situation where I was kind of blaming everybody, but I wasn't reflecting on what I had done to get myself into this situation. I was blaming the banks, and I was blaming the government, and I was, it was kind of like everyone else's fault but my own. I was a kind of an innocent victim in this situation, and I suddenly realized that, hold on a second, something has to change here. If I'm a victim, then it means that I have to be, I just will go in the direction of the current. Whereas if I'm to use the word warrior, or if I'm kind of taking control of the situation, then that's a totally different story. And now I have control over how I react to the circumstances I find myself. So that was a real moment when everything changed for me. Stop being the victim, stop blaming people, to take ownership of your mistakes. When you take ownership of your mistakes, you can then start to fix it.
Amazing. So taking 100% responsibility.
Big time, yeah.
Amazing. Carla?
Oh gosh, life has been littered with some of these tragedies and tribulations. It really has, I think. And actually, each chapter, it gives you an opportunity when you stop and take a breath to look at, okay, it's time to pivot. And there's it gives you a different lens to look at something new that wasn't necessarily around before that time. So there's been so many different occasions, and every single time it's pushed me certainly to actually feel the fear and do it anyway. Get in that uncomfortable struggle. Sometimes it feels like you're dancing on glass, or nails. Not very nice. And I'm actually just picturing now, thinking that's not a very nice picture, but it's the feeling I'm trying to describe. And actually, if you can just walk across that bridge, whether it's glass or nails or whatever it is, or even hot coals, and get to the other side, then that's when you know, okay, I can do this. I've done it. And it's who you become along the journey. It's not even the destination, is it? It's about how you get fit for purpose along the way. And you become unrecognizable, but you don't necessarily realize that until you look back at what you were like before, how life was before. So sorry to get a bit deep there, but it's been a lot of things happening. And even as recently as last year, my father, I'm very close to, had a pretty serious stroke last July, and he's now in a fragile condition, where a lot of his abilities, his independence has gone. And things like that forces you, it sobers you, basically, sobering, to actually help you put things into perspective, to say, okay, what is it that deserves focusing on now? And at the heart of everything is the power of human energy, because that is the biggest thing that I'm passionate about.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. And Kishore?
Thank you. Thanks for sharing your views there. So throughout my life, there's one thing that I always call myself as going through metamorphosis. And this is what I've actually seen all my life. Every 5 years, I was actually forming myself into a completely new person. So completely putting myself into a different situation, different position, or learning something new, where when I look back, always thought, oh, how bad I was. But then that's always been a journey throughout. And even now, I'm still learning, still going through the changes. And the biggest change that actually maybe more relevant for the Toastmasters journey was when I actually was doing a master's program in UCD. As part of that program, at the end of the course, I was supposed to give a presentation, a 10-minute presentation as part of the assessment. And even though I know that I can communicate, but I didn't really had a formal presentation / public speaking skills till that point in time, even though I had some experience. So on the stage, when I gave that 10-minute presentation, I was so utterly failed in giving that 10-minute presentation. And I just came back. I really, really thought through what that really went wrong, where I couldn't have actually even given 10 minutes of that. And that's when I immediately, within a week, I went back to join our Toastmasters, and I tried a couple of them. And then I gave my first speech. Even that itself was terrible to stand in front of audiences and speak in front of them. And I would say from then, I would have given dozens of speeches. I would have participated in competitions, or I've taken a number of roles. But what I really, when I look back, the big thing that changed from that day to today is actually being transformational. And it's really indeed, and that I keep sharing it with all the Toastmasters members, or even anyone who actually come to for my mentorship. I think expressing yourself to others is probably the biggest skill or biggest the power that actually everyone has. And accepting that change that I can actually do, and really doing it, I think is probably the thing that changed my life for very, very good. And that's where from 6 years ago to where I stumbled to give a 5-minute speech to now giving in international speeches, I think is a testimony to see how much I actually changed and how much I pushed myself into it.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. I will just share a little bit about my journey as well, and that what shifted for me, where I thought something needs to change in me. I come from a digital marketing background, and so I'm behind a computer all day. I'm an introvert. I'm a shy kid. And when it comes to delivering presentations to CEOs, board members, in meetings, I freeze. Like, to explain something technical to them, they're like, amazing, what's this idea you have? What are you working on? You're going to grow the business, digital marketing side, all the social media, technology and all that. Simplify it to us. And I just froze. I was like, how do you do this? How does people do this? And so that got me to join Toastmasters, and from delivering a 10-second table topics where I just panicked, to now being able to host panels like this has been amazing. So it's just a great testimony to the transformation, like everyone else has been saying, that you go through Toastmasters, from stepping up, from doing those roles and trying something different. Amazing. And many people think that confidence comes first, but in your experience, did confidence come before action, or because of it? Let's go Carla first this time.
I think definitely confidence is born out of action. It is not, we cannot wait to get confident, because that's like mañana, someday island. It never happens. And the more we wait for the confidence to arrive or to be there, the more likely it is that, or unlikely is that, we're actually going to take the action. So Susan Jeffers talks about feel the fear and do it anyway. How right was she? Absolutely. Because it's in our struggles and in our uncomfortable, it's in the fear zone where amazing things happen. Like they say, you can't, even diamonds need pressure and stress to become diamonds. So, it's that in my experience, everything, when I've eaten that frog or that toad, not literally, taking that action, no matter how much I did not want to do it, I've come out of it and actually thought, well, I didn't die. I'm still here. But what have I learned from it? So, yeah, it's definitely action. I hope that answers your question, Jono.
Yeah, amazing. My interpretation of that version is say yes, freak out, and do it anyway.
Yes, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that speech that you did around that as well.
Let's go with Gavin this time.
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of things that come to mind. First of all, I think everybody, even people that are very successful outwardly, they all suffer from what's known as imposter syndrome. And I went through that myself. Like, I've built up a big social media following now, and I have a podcast that has a very loyal following. But when I started that, I had absolutely no experience. I just hit record, took action. I feel very confident today, but at the time when I did it, I was just like nervous. What will people think and all that? And there's a saying, to fake it till you make it. And so there's, I just decided to, I don't know what the reaction of these of listeners is going to be. I don't know if I'm going to even have listeners, but I'm going to just keep on going and see what happens as a result. And what I actually, I have a friend who had a podcast at the time, and he gave me some advice, and he just said that something like 95% of all podcasts never go beyond 7 episodes. And he said that if you can just get to your 8th episode, you're already in the top 5%. And I remember thinking, whoa, okay, I'll try that. I mean, 8 can't be that difficult. And so I recorded one every week. And then at 8 weeks, I can remember somebody wrote to me, and I think it was through LinkedIn. And he just said, Gavin, that was a great podcast you did. I've actually canceled a transaction that I was about to do on hearing your podcast. Mm-hmm. And I can remember hearing that and going, oh, wow, like this guy took action on my advice. And then I suddenly realized that, people are listening, and that I actually am having an impact. And so it wasn't until I had already done 8 before I had any sort of feedback from anybody. So yeah, definitely take action.
Yeah, podcast is one of the hardest games to be consistent on. I remember when I first started mine, I think we got to about 30 before our first season ended. And now we're in discussion to bring back season 2. So podcast is definitely one of the hardest things to be consistent on. Okay, sure.
Excellent. Okay, I think I would fall onto the same side, but probably I'll come with a few more perspectives on it. Yeah, confidence I think it's not a fuel that drives the action, but it's exhaust. Basically, it's what's left behind after you have done the hardest thing. Because no one, when they do it for the first time, have ever walked with a feeling of that readiness, feeling that they're not afraid. But the main difference is that they've done it somehow, right? And then whatever comes after that, the second time, third time, fourth time, is what your mind actually builds a confidence. Because I think even scientifically as well, the way our mind actually works is through when you have prefrontal cortex is a part of the brain where the decisions are made, where self-beliefs and your confidence and all the other aspects of come into picture. So that actually expands each time you actually go through an experience. And once you finish that experience, and that adds up to your building up of the decision or the confidence that we call. So it is an accumulation of all those actions that you put in, which will make you more confident. I think that's why they say that, people who are more sports people are more confident, because that's what they do every day. What they do is they take an action. They do it more and more. They fail. So I think definitely it is the action that follows, and the confidence follows that for the action.
Amazing. I'd like how you nearly touched upon the next question, which I was going to ask is, everyone in this room has felt fear before speaking. What's one truth about fear that people misunderstand? And how should we actually relate to it? Okay, sure, if you want to go first this time, because you touched upon it already.
Yeah, I think most people think fear as an enemy. I would think fear is just one part of the feelings, whether it is your love or hate or whatever it is. It's how you actually use it, or if it is already there, recognizing that there is a fear and then what to do with it. In fact, the fears could be like two different kinds. One, which is more as a flight and danger fear, where you take something, go on a cliff, and then probably you might fall. That probably is a more genuine fear. But then there is a other type of fear, which is generally called, it's called as a growth fear, meaning it comes in stages. Something like either you're giving a presentation, or a public speaking fear, or taking up a new job, or changing in your life. So those fears, I think, can be built. And also, when you recognize, like, what is that causing that fear? Also remember, if there is a fear, that means the thing that you're going to do is something more valuable to you. That means you care more about it. That is the reason why you fear about it. So instead of taking the fear as something which is not to do, or which is dangerous, identify it as whether it's a growth fear or a danger fear. If it's a growth fear, just take it and ask a question. What is that one thing that I care about? And if that is more than what your fear is, I think you take an action, and then you succumb to that. Either you overcome it, and then you become more natural towards it.
Awesome. Carla?
Thank you. Fear, oh gosh, this is a really interesting topic for all sorts of reasons, because we all know what that feels like. And sometimes we also get it confused with excitement, bearing in mind it's the same chemical that spews out of our gut. It's our thinking that actually determines whether it's something that we should be scared or fearful of, or whether it's something that we could be excited about. So, there's adrenaline and all sorts of involved in that. But I think when we actually, remove some of the rubble and take a deeper dive inside the essence of fear, a lot of it, in my experience, in my studies, have shown that actually it's about clarity. And that actually dovetails into confidence as well. So when there's the unknown, when we don't know enough, it's like, oh, well, what if I get it wrong? What if I fail? What if I break it? Even I've experienced recently silly little things that other people probably do in their sleep. I hadn't actually used a proper drill before, and I'm on my own, and there was something that I really, really, really wanted to fix. It was just getting on my nerves. It got to the stage where I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to feel the fear and do it anyway. And what could have taken me, if I knew what I was doing, perhaps 5-6 minutes, ended up taking me over an hour, because I really wanted to work out, how do I do this properly and how do I do it well? And these days we have access to Google and all sorts of things, and YouTube. So I thought, I'll just look it up and see how other people do it. And that's why it took me over an hour, because I went down that rabbit hole. But it's about clarity. I think fear is cloaked in oh my God, but all those negativities, all those limiting beliefs. And actually, if we just take a breath, meditate on it, and go, okay, actually, what do I want the result or the outcome? What's the outcome going to be here? And then, channel that energy into something that we want to work towards. And that's, for me, in my experience, it's a great way of actually harnessing that fear and converting it into resourceful energy. I hope that helps.
Awesome. Gavin?
Fear, I think, for a lot of people, fear is really, when it comes to any kind of work-related fear, so something like public speaking, as a distinction from what Kishore was referring to, like, fear of harm or death or something like that. But I think for a lot of people, The fear comes from fear of judgment of others. A lot of the time, you could happily speak by yourself looking at the mirror and there would be no problem. But it's the thought that there's a bunch of other people and that they might judge you in some shape or form. That's a lot of the time where the fear is rooted. And I think we have to figure out how we're going to kind of overcome that. And this is where kind of mindset and psychology comes into it. First of all, it's important to remember that all sort of personal development or growth comes from discomfort. You're not growing if you're in your comfort zone. You have to be pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And I kind of look for things that push me out of my comfort zone, because I kind of feel like I'm improving if that happens. So that's the first thing. And then the psychological sort of aspect of it. It's funny, I said this to my daughter, she was probably 7 at the time, and somebody had said something to her in school and told her, somebody said, you're ugly or you're fat or something like that, something unkind. And it was really getting to her. And I just sort of said, well, what you're fearing there is actually, it's somebody else's view, and you're basically sort of acting as if their judgment has merit. Now, I said it in a more child-friendly way, of course. But what I was saying is, if somebody turned around and instead of saying you're ugly or you're fat, which you might believe that, maybe it's true. But if somebody said you're a purple banana, this is the words I used for her. If somebody said you're a real purple banana, you would kind of go, what are you talking about? Like, are you insane? And I just said that when somebody uses a word to describe you, it's you who gives it meaning. Nobody else. Like, that person could just as easily be saying you're a purple banana, and you would give it no meaning. But when it's something that you think may be true, or maybe you have your own doubts or something like that, that's when you give meaning to what their words are. And I just sort of said, try to remember that anything somebody says about you is like the purple banana. It means nothing. It's only you who can give power to that word. And so that, I think, once you remember that, other people can judge you, but do you really care? It's what meaning you give to that judgment, I think, is what matters.
Wow, I think purple banana's going to stick with me now.
I love it.
Because when I first did public speaking, going to corporate events for any public talks, it's always my anxieties that would trigger up internally, and then I had to reframe it and go, this is not being anxious, is not scared, is not fear, but it's excitement, because I care about delivering what I'm about to say to the people that's going to be listening. I think that shift is very important, what you all touched upon there. And now this leads to leading, the leadership part. Now, leadership isn't a title, it's a mindset, it's a way of being, it's a way of life. That's how I see leadership. In your opinion, what's the biggest shift someone needs to make to go from participant to leading, or to become a leader? Whoever wants to go first.
I can go with it. I think leadership and participants, as you rightly said, it is definitely a mindset shift. Everybody is, in my opinion, I think everybody naturally is a leader. And there's always been a saying that, leaders are born or they're made. There's a big debate over that. But I think everybody is a leader. And if someone thinks that they are not, they can actually be one, right? But the main shift, I think, from a participant to a leader is, it's a very fundamentally, like, a participant probably would ask, what needs to happen? Or rather, they would ask, what do I do? They seek permission. They wait for something to happen. They wait for someone to take the lead. Whereas a leader asks, what needs to happen and who's going to make sure that it does? So that thinking of, asking for permission to owning it and also taking that one step ahead of who can actually do this and how things can happen is the biggest, especially in our corporate world. Even though it sounds very simple, but it's all about ownership and outcomes, and also having full control, be able to confidently be in the room where things are not clear, but you take it, like you own it, and then you make sure that the things actually keep moving. You don't blame, rather, or you actually look at more from a bigger picture, like what's the outcome of it, rather than having those small results. So leadership is more of it's about accountability, responsibility, and also it's not about the title, but it's all about a behavior that you actually demonstrate within a room or within a situation. Also, they're never ready. Leader, generally, they go into an action and they don't wait for something to build it up. Rather, they take it up and then they build it out from there. So some of these are the features that you can see between a participant and a leader, which differentiates drastically, contrastically. Even though it's there in everyone, it's just how you demonstrate that actually makes one as a leader and one as a participant.
Amazing. So those that take initiative and be willing to take responsibility for the choices and actions that they're taking.
I would add to what Kishore said there. I think that very much it's about taking responsibility rather than waiting for it to be given to you. And also then when I say taking responsibility, it's also being accountable for being in charge. If you delegate a task to somebody and they make a mistake, a poor leader will blame the person who made the mistake, whereas a good leader would turn around and say, this is on me. I delegated the task and I did not explain it correctly. Otherwise, that mistake would not have been made. Or that person was not up to the job and I should never have assumed that they would take that responsibility. But somebody doesn't wait for something to be told or invited to lead. I think you naturally take responsibility for a situation that you see. And there's a writer that I've read multiple books, Robin Sharma. And Robin came out with a book called The Leader with No Title years ago. And I can remember the thing I took away from that was it can be anybody. A personal leadership is where you take responsibility for your role. And so to use the example, people like to think of a leader as, the CEO of an organization or whatever, but the guy that is cleaning the corridors at night after everyone's gone home, he can do that, and not care, or he can say, you know what, I'm going to do the best job. Nobody is going to be better than me at cleaning these corridors. And that's somebody who's taking personal leadership for their situation.
Wow. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Right. Look, my experience of leadership, echoing in addition to what Gavin and Kishore have shared with you, for me, I think leadership is about not necessarily having all the answers, but actually empowering, engaging hearts and minds. Because if you've got nobody to follow you, nobody that's invested in your vision and in your energy, then you're not leading anybody. So in order to be a good leader, you need people that are invested in your vision, mission, and where you're going. And how you're doing it. And I think inspiring others, empowering others, encouraging others to step up and actually give things a go. It doesn't matter if they break a few things. You can't make an omelette without cracking a few eggs. So, you gotta let people learn and give them the opportunity to give it a go, to learn. And it's not your way or the highway. That's management. That's not leadership. And I think leadership, and particularly authentic leadership, actually does involve great communication, and I mean good communication, having a good, healthy tension. What I mean by that is actually having the confidence and the freedom to have robust conversations, creative conversations. I mean, Steve Jobs, think of him what you may, but he was a great leader. Look what he built. It's leadership to me is a team sport. Because if you haven't got a good team, if you don't know how to galvanize your team or communicate with your team, you're not leading anyone. So to me, leadership is a team sport.
Amazing. Yeah, I can definitely relate to a lot of these, because when I did the first area director role during the pandemic, when we had to switch from in-person to online, we were handed a Zoom account and then delegated to train all 6 of our clubs in the area and switch 150 members online from that was the interesting period of life where I was like, you know what, this is probably beyond what I thought knowledge, but I had a lot of digital marketing skills and background, so I was comfortable with it. But it was leading the people that I was having those self-doubts, and there's imposter syndrome and everything that was coming out. But I had a great team that everyone, I think that's a safe area. Toastmasters provided a safe area for us to learn and to try things and see what works and what doesn't work. Then we tweak the process. And I think that's a great learning environment and a place for us to learn about leading, but also learn about the communication skills and the teamwork and everything else that goes beyond it. And this is leads towards breaking limiting beliefs, which is what's a limiting belief that you personally had to break that changed everything for you?
Gosh, where'd you start with that? There's so many different examples, like life examples, work examples, or business examples.
Could be one big one. Let's, for instance, my limiting belief was that I'm a shy kid. I don't know how to communicate. I'm an introvert. Public speaking is not for me. And that was the thing that I had to overcome.
Yeah.
Just an example.
Yes, it's a great example.
And that literally changed everything.
Well, I guess a good example that I shouldn't shy away from is when it came to me publishing my book. I was petrified, and my Be Perfect behavior driver was saying, it's not ready yet, it's not ready yet. 98 iterations later. And it was my youngest son that said, actually, Mum, it is ready. And he was a young teenager, I think 14 at the time. And I said, oh, well, how would you know? Have you read it? He said, yeah, I read the manuscript and it's good. It's really good. It works. I said, but you're 14. I said, but you're just being kind. Would you tell your friends about it though? He said, I already have. And we're all of us are trying some of the things in that book already. It's really good. Get it published. And when I sent it to the publishers, I then panicked like mad. I thought, oh my God, that's it. It's out there. There's nothing you can do. You can't undo what you've done. And I actually took cover for about 2 months. I didn't mention it to anybody. It might have been longer than 2 months. I didn't tell anybody. I just kind of quietly thought, okay. And then when I got my first 5-star reviews, I thought, oh, somebody likes it. Oh my God, somebody likes it. I can breathe now. But yeah, that was a big deal of that I had a huge limiting belief. I thought, who's going to want to read it? I'm nobody, and not known, being totally unknown. It's like
imposter syndrome.
I had a massive imposter syndrome. And even public speaking, when I got my first few speaking at company conferences and keynotes on the book, even that, the imposter syndrome was big and ugly and sitting right there on my shoulder. I thought, who's going to listen to this? So yeah, it's even now I have to go, okay, just breathe. What's the message? You're passionate about this. Now, what I've learned since then is that, you know, if somebody held my feet to the fire, I can talk passionately about my subject. I am totally invested in it. So I think that working on that has really, really helped me. But yeah, that was a huge limiting belief that I have to manage quite a lot.
I can relate to that. And it's funny, when I think about the self-limiting belief, I mean, I talk about self-limiting beliefs in my own podcast quite a lot, because I do think it holds a lot of people back.
Yeah.
But my own personal experience of it was going through publishing some of my podcasts. And I can remember before I actually published anything in a podcast, there was an app that everyone was downloading during COVID called, it was basically, you could speak, it was like a radio app, and I've forgotten the name right now.
Clubhouse.
That's the one, Clubhouse. It was huge and everyone was on it at the time. And I can remember being in a room and being asked a question about the recession of 2008. And I had not shared my personal story of where everything collapsed and all that kind of stuff. And I thought I had a lot of learnings that I could share, but I'd never shared them. And I was kind of the view that maybe people will judge me if I share what a collapse I went through. Maybe people will think that I'm a fool to have, lost to the level that I lost. And so I didn't want to share it. And then this person asked me this question on Clubhouse. And I remember kind of speaking and describing my experience. And then there was complete silence in the Clubhouse room. And people were like, wow, that's an incredible story. And after that Clubhouse room finished, I opened up my LinkedIn and I had about 60 connection requests from people that were in the room. And I was just like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And I immediately thought I had overshared, that I had actually damaged my career by sharing. And that was the belief that I had, that sharing such a failure would be damaging to my career. And completely the opposite. It actually enhanced the career in a major way, just by being authentic and transparent about the experience that I went through. And so I think people being vulnerable is actually a strength that a lot of people would assume that is not a strength, that it's a sign of weakness.
That's true. Okay,
Sure.
So I think it all comes down to imposter syndrome or why me kind of situations. But then if I have to really put it into what's that one limiting belief that actually changed me, or rather, it's not a sudden change, but it is a gradual one. I always used to think that I'm always unlucky. I mean, I always fail at things that I do. And I always used to question, why is it me? Why I'm not capable of doing it when someone else is able to do it? So I always question myself, when someone else can do, why can't I? And eventually, when I really see the pattern over the years, when I look back, the pattern that came out was that the things that I was trying were always which were out of my comfort zone. I was never trying something which I'm really good at, or things that I know I'm going to do it. So therefore, anytime that because I've never seen the struggle or the things that the other people actually gone through, or they've already came up with certain training or certain baseline. But for me, there was no baseline for anything. And therefore, it's a first attempt, and I always used to fail. And then I used to question myself. But then eventually, what really changed was that I was trying something different. And the kind of the way people see it as a luck right? It increases when your surface area of trial actually is bigger. So meaning you'll always fail the first time, you'll always fail the second time, or you'll always fail the second one. But then the number of times that you make attempts, that increases the chances of your success overall. And that's where you become lucky. So eventually, I really don't feel that, I've been lucky, but people outside do definitely feel that I got lucky by somehow, because it's not possible for someone, being there, moving to a different place, or going to sort of bigger corporate life, or speaking on a stage like that, right? So I think believing that, you're unlucky, or you're not good enough, or, why is it happening to me? It is for everyone. I think there is a lot that goes behind everybody's story. And I think once I shifted from there, if I'm failing now, I think it's part of the story. It is part of the journey. Let me go ahead and then move ahead. And I think that really changed my life in a big time, at least the way I think of failure.
Yeah, that's a massive perspective to shift. I remember shifting from that as well. I think when I was like not good enough, and failing is all about learning. Like there's no such thing as failure. It's just a matter of perspective. It's like there's no failing. It's just learning. It's learning how not to do it.
Right.
And
I think Gavin rightly said, if you're not uncomfortable, that means you're really not learning.
yeah, exactly.
No growth.
Yeah, there's no growth
And-
without.
And that's the growth mindset that people don't talk about. And I think a lot of people don't see what goes behind the scenes, like the amount of meetings that we do, the leadership roles that we step into, the after hours that we step into to create and to keep working behind the scenes to prepare our speeches, whether it's rewriting, adding humor, making it more engaging, like those kind of little tweaks and amendments that we do behind the scenes. There's people that don't see, but also the fact that we don't share it, like Gavin said, like when we share our story, why we do what we do, and how we came to the situation when we came to. I remember when I first shared about my mental health challenges, about bereavement, the loss of my dad, and once I broke through that and sharing that story again through Toastmasters, because it was a safe environment for me to share that journey and how I overcame it, and all of that made it all comfortable for me to keep, I think, grow stronger, but also stepping into my own power about moving onwards. I think that's the kind of resilience that people don't see when you're get lucky to be invited on stages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So next one is, which leads to, in a world where people feel pressure to perform, how do you stay authentic while still growing your voice and presence?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. In a world where people feel pressure to perform, how do you stay authentic while still growing your voice and presence?
I think believing in and being invested in what you want to share. Whilst you're doing it for the listeners or the audience, if we're talking about public speaking in this instance, I think knowing your audience, knowing the theme is really, really important, and engaging hearts and minds quite early on, getting that audience hooked, but making it personal as well to them. I know Toastmasters is great in teaching us how to do that, but when you're actually there in front of a live audience, it's quite different. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what the energy is like in the room. So doing a temperature check on the energy in the room and actually getting their energy right in the room is, in my experience, is really, really helpful, because once they're hooked and they're invested in their energy and you're interacting with them, the time goes really, really quickly. You're not thinking about, oh my gosh, you're just invested in, you're in the zone, you're in the flow. And when you're in flow state, everything's flowing and people are loving it, they're engaging it. And the biggest thing is reward is when people, like you mentioned it earlier, Gavin, when you had all those people linking in with you on LinkedIn, you know, those kind of things happening to you, or people queuing up to have a selfie taken with you and things like that. Those kind of things, which are, to me, wonderful surprises every time it happens. But you do kind of feel, yeah, okay. Yeah, they heard me. They, you know, I connected with them, because it's about the people. For me, when I'm speaking, I'm not doing it for me. I want to share something that is going to help somebody in that room. And if you can help one person, if you can make a difference to one person, that's enough. That's one more than you had yesterday.
Yeah, it's a good point. I was struggling to answer that question, and then I just thought to myself, you know, when you combine pressure with being authentic, I think it really, sometimes we can overthink these things, because you know, in my case, I have a social media following, and I post a video reel every day on Instagram, and I meet with my videographer about once a month, and we'll have a conversation about lots of things, and then he'll chop it up and put it into videos. And sometimes it's the most innocuous discussion that you're having that I don't even feel warrants being uploaded to social media. That's the one that can have a huge, like the audience somehow resonate with it. And we can often overthink. We can put ourselves under huge pressure to get everything perfectly right, and then it'll flop. Whereas if you just share something that's on your mind, be authentic, you know, not much going on today, let's talk about this, you know, and suddenly, whoa, everybody's interested, and that is phenomenal. So I would say, don't lean into the pressure, and definitely don't be the perfectionist, because I think the perfectionist is what really holds us back. In fact, speaking about limiting self-beliefs, like perfection, thinking that a perfection is achievable is itself a limiting belief. And so just push it out there. As Daniel Priestley said, when I worked with him a few years ago on something, he was saying that prolific, not perfect. You just want to put lots of content out there, not to get it perfect.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's really, really important.
Yeah. So for me, I think every human being or every individual is as unique as an atom itself. And therefore, whatever thoughts, whatever experience that you gather are as unique, and that can be a story by itself, right? So instead of being influenced rather or pressurized from the external environment, either to replicate it or to wear a facade to be someone else, is not going to take you far enough. Because as Gavin said, it's a vulnerability. It's that you being yourself is such a unique story to the entire world. So therefore, I think if you're authentic, if you're true to yourself, and you're able to demonstrate the fullest, like the full self of what you are, actually gets the best out of you more naturally. And I think that is going to go a long way, both commercially or whatever you really want to portray to the people. Because at a point where you're really making that as imitation or acting without authenticity, it will fall out. The facade is going to fall out one day, and that is going to be disastrous. So therefore, having that understanding that, you know, you are unique, you are special, and being true to yourself, I think is a long way to go in any of the areas.
Amazing advice. Amazing words of wisdom, everyone. I'd love to get a quick response from each of you now. Finish this sentence. Everything changed for me when I realized.
Everything changed for me when I realized that mistakes are not something that should be hidden, but that you should speak out and share your insights. And the more detailed, the better. Certainly, that has been my experience.
Awesome.
Everything changed for me when I realized that every opportunity is a learning opportunity as well. I'm a bit of a sucker for learning. And you think, okay, what can I learn from this? Even if it's to learn how not to do something, still an opportunity. So what am I going to take? A glib way of putting it would be, I suppose, what can I take away from this? And what can I leave behind? What can I give? So it's a two-way thing.
Yeah, I think everything changed when my perspective of being unlucky, really, it's not a bad thing, but then it really changed. It means that I'm actually having that 1% extra luck for my success. So it is paving path to a better off whatever it is going to happen each time I fail.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And last one would be looking back on your journey, because this is what it's about. Who did you have to become in order to live the life you're living today?
That's a really, really tricky one. Really hard. That's an evil question, John. How dare you ask?
End on a high note.
Okay. Gosh. Well, there's lots of people that I put myself in the guise of, when I'm trying to tackle something, even, as crazy as, how would, Boadicea do this? Or how would Socrates do this? So, that kind of, for me, that mindset shift is really quite helpful at some of the times when, you don't want to be paralyzed by whatever it is that's holding you back. But when I reflect back over my life, I would say my father's been a huge inspiration. He was my cheerleader. He was encouraging and gave me the courage. And he said, "You can do this. You know how to work it out." And constantly from the age of like 3 upwards, he empowered me to feel the fear and do it anyway. So from a personal point of view, it would be him. I mean, when I look back at what he's done with his life, he moved continents with a suitcase, a family, and no Wi-Fi. No, there was nothing around when he had to do all of that. But I won't go into his life story right now. It's just, let's just leave it that it was a very inspirational journey. And you think, crikey, if he can do that, I've got no excuse. I really have got no excuse. So that's the fighting talk that takes me out of my bent into a pretzel stage and straightens me out.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I think it'll be very hard for me to think, who I want to be. Probably there's so many people out there, or everybody has some things out there. But I would really want to say it in a way that I just want to be a better version of myself, like whatever I was, and keep on improving. And when I really realized it's been throughout the years, I think it'll always be a work in progress. So there'll be no best, but it'll always be better of your previous version. So that's how I would take it.
For me, it's a really interesting question, is who do you have to become to live the life you're living today? And I would say it goes back to a word you used earlier, Kala, clarity, is understanding what is it that you want in your life, but knowing what it is you want, not what society might deem that you should want. And I can remember, working on things when I was younger that I believed that, would be financially rewarding and all of these different things, but I was following what society viewed as what I wanted, as opposed to looking inward and actually getting clear on what is it that I actually want myself. And so I think who I've become in order to be who I am today and where I am today is the authentic person that I want to be, is just that I've reflected on not just what I want, but what I don't want. I think that's an important, I don't want certain things in my life, and therefore I live a certain way for that, to be the case. But it's being clear on that and not allowing peer pressure and, the view of others and judgment and all that kind of stuff. So I just stare straight ahead. I don't get deterred, and I don't lose focus by, shiny objects. I try to look at what I'm looking at, and that's it. Focus on that's me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's easy to be distracted by shiny objects. I'm definitely one for shiny objects.
Too easy.
It's very easy nowadays. And before we wrap up, thank you, Gavin, Carla, Kishore, and Olga, running behind the scenes at the moment. But as we come to an end of tonight's conversation, I want you to take a moment, not to think about what you've heard, but to think about what stayed with you. Because tonight wasn't just about speaking, it wasn't just about leadership, it was about something deeper. The mindset shifts that quietly change the direction of our lives. Because spaces like this, they don't just build speakers, they build people. And people who are willing to step forward, step up, speak up, and grow into who they're capable of becoming.
I think what's stuck with me in particular is listening to Carla talking about her 14-year-old son telling her, it's ready, hit publish. I've been playing with the idea of publishing a book myself for a while. And I think I would also fall into that perfectionism where it would never be complete. I would constantly be iterating and improving and stuff like that. So I think it's good advice there to just bloody well hit publish.
Publish, exactly. I'll hold you to that, Gavin.
Please do.
Let me know when you're doing it. Brilliant.
Awesome. So we do have some fun stuff planned in May. I think we will catch up with the champions from the district. In June, we have a cool one. We will have a Toastmaster who will not know who the guest is, and will display the wonderful pivot skill of Toastmaster. I believe we will bring back Nigel Smith to host the next episodes. And for now, goodbye and see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.